It's conservative.
If you're looking for something liberal
and realistic, this is the place to be.
Welcome to our podcast without a name, where we talk about things that are factual, liberal, I'm tempted to say controversial, but conservative. And we have an interesting topic to discuss about today, which is prosperity in a family. And I have also my partners in crime, I would say. I have my co-host, and he'll introduce himself. And we also have our guest. She will also introduce herself. I'll start with my co-host. Can you please introduce yourself as we get into it?
Hello, I'm Justice.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nomaliso Msasiwa. I am a business person. I'm a mom to 2 girls and a stepmom to 3 beautiful kids, and a serial entrepreneur in essence.
Thank you very much. That was good, because I was also going to get to that, but you already put it out across to people. A mother, you're also a wife, and you're also a serial entrepreneur, which is part of the reasons why we called you here. Because in our African, or in our African culture in itself, there is a bit of issues arising to that. I'm drawing this whole discussion on a biblical point of view. I'm looking at Adam and Eve. And then when God said that to Adam, that I shall give to you, or I shall make for you a helpmate, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of questions that have come out of that thing. Helpmate, what is it? What are we talking about? And who's the head? Who's listening to who? And the issues about submission then come into play. And also in our context as young children or young kids, as we're getting into this whole marriage setup, there's always this particular issues about, I don't want her to be better than me as a guy, I'm scared she'll be much, much better than me, and etc. But I'll try and first go back to your background, and then we move forward to the marriage part of it. School-wise, were you always those kids that always wanted to be number one?
I'm pretty competitive as a person, right? So I've always been striving to be top of my class or top of a specific subject. There are others that you're not going to be best at, so you hog the ones that and then it pretty much becomes a well-known fact that, okay, she's good at that and not good at that. So that's how I grew up. I have 2 siblings, okay. But then I grew up mostly with my young brother. My youngest sister is significantly younger than both of us. But with my brother, even there, growing up in the family setup, there was some sort of competition, a healthy one, I should say. Okay. But I've always been a person that's a go-getter in a sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And Justice, my co-host, I wanted to ask you a question, and probably this will fall into what you would say later on. When you were at school, did you have problems, or did you find it nice to have girls that were always challenging, especially to the guys, especially in class, those ones that always want to be number one?
Yeah, you know what? As I was in school, it hasn't been that easy thing to do, being around the most sought after lady in school and all of that, which then brings me to their situation. They blew up so much during COVID, and now everyone wants to be close to Noma, everyone wants to be close to Kuda. And also it then makes me wanna understand more, how is the dynamic within the family? Because you are that picture of a modern family we all wish to be. And then what is then your idea of a modern spouse, if I were to ask you that?
When I got into the marriage, right, my goal was always to be friends with my spouse, because with challenges that come in marriage, some that I've observed from my own parents when I was growing up, the best place to start resolution of any conflict is being friends with your spouse. So that's what has made us great business partners, great spouse mates, if I could call it that, and pretty much people that can hang out in any setting, right? We're always that couple that everyone's like, you always go around with your husband everywhere, you always go around with your wife everywhere, but that's because generally we sought out to be friends first. That's what makes the modernity, I suppose.
Okay, interesting. Picking it back from what you're saying and in terms of being friends, which is quite key in what you're mentioning, there's an element of competition, and we're humans. I would always want to perform a bit better. And in our setup as a young man, we're always taught that we're always the head and we're always supposed to be competitive. Even just when there's a beautiful girl, we want to compete to get that girl.
Definitely.
For you in that dynamic of your relationship or your marriage, there is competition, I would believe, somewhere, somehow, sometimes. How have you managed to handle that as a wife and at the same time also being a friend to him?
Let me be honest. I don't have competition with my husband. We have competition against the standard that we have put for ourselves and our family goal and purpose, right? So it's something that's very clear. If you walk into our home, our family purpose is written on the wall, right? Our family purpose is we want to impact the people that we encounter in life through the work that we do, right? And funnily enough is that we've found a lot of the things that we do, we complement each other. And because we work together, there's no space for competition, right? I don't wake up in the morning trying to think, I'm going to buy or invest in a new property for myself in my name, because then that derails the impact of the whole family. Because at the end of the day, what we do is for our children and for the generations to come and for our comfort in the time that we build whatever we're building. So the moment I'm doing or digressing from that, I'm no longer in the purpose of the marriage, and subsequently I'm not in the marriage. So the competition is always against how did we do last week, versus this week. What are we doing better? That's something that we do in our family AGMs and weekly meetings. Like, okay, what are we focusing on this week? So I guess that's the competition that I would say it exists. But in terms of against each other, I don't know if it's something that's even healthy to discuss in a marriage setting. The moment you compete with your spouse, you're in the wrong game of marriage.
Okay, interesting perspective. Do you want to say
what I'm getting to is the issue of the family substance. I get that you don't like compete with each other, but at the same time you work together. So now what then happens? You are both coming from work and there's a family that needs to be taken care of. And we have got, culturally, what a wife has got to do and what the husband has got to do. Who is changing the diapers? Who is doing the laundries? Who is doing the cooking? We were all hustling, trying to bring food to the table.
Yeah.
How do you go with that?
I think we are not closed to the idea of help. So we do have help in the home. Tinana auntie who help us with the children. And, so the mundane tasks, I call them mundane because generally, whether you're cooking or not, is neither here nor there. We eat for nourishment and maybe sometimes to enjoy the meal, but it's neither here nor there. My husband is a better cook than I am, believe it or not, right? So Sunday burger afternoon is his day, right? It's probably one of the meals that I look forward to, but then I can also cook. So in terms of just home tasks and the idea that the wife has to nurture the home. I nurture the home by planning on how things go. So my children are on a schedule. You wake up at 6, you get ready for school, you eat breakfast, and today it's a Tuesday, you're eating cereal or you're going to have a cup of milk, then go to school, your lunch is packed. It's decided what is being packed on that day. I'm that structural in a sense. So I don't spend time trying to think, how do I execute certain tasks? They're meant to be executed. So there's never a time that my husband is going to wake up and is like, my trousers is not ironed. No. The plan was made before that auntie is going to make sure that this and this is ironed. Thankfully, my husband only wears black. So between a black t-shirt and a black t-shirt is a black t-shirt. Point, is it clean? Is it ironed? And it's something that's presentable for him to wear in public. And does it then translate to me as a wife? How do I, when people look at him, does it look like he's a well cared for husband, right? Yes. The one who's going to ask who ironed your shirt, they're pretty nosy. That doesn't work into the functionality of the family. So that's what we do. In terms of provision, the same way that he probably works twice as hard as I do, right? But then when we come to the family part of what have we gathered, we don't look at who put what's in the pot, it's what is in the pot, you
Okay,
know.
which
So
is
that's how we maneuver that.
Okay. It brings me to a curious issue. We are young. Senza umjolo. Right.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on, I'm still dating. I'm focused. I have this business acumen. She's there also. She has this business acumen. Would you advise us to put the effort together? Because this is a marriage setup. So it's kind of like what God has put together. No man put asunder. No, God has not yet put together. But we do want to get to that level.
Yeah.
Would you advise me? Or it's one of those things, itayako,
I don't believe in that statement personally.
Okay.
Right. And also when we look at how we run our businesses, sometimes we're always scared that we're putting our eggs in one basket.
All right.
So it's not necessarily something that I would say, focus all your strengths into one thing, right? But then it goes back to what is the purpose of the family or the purpose of the union that you are trying to build, right?
Okay.
So are you coming into the marriage because you want to get married because every one of your peers are getting married, right? If that's the reason, please don't get married, right? Because you're going to have a difficult time being together. So figure out why you want to be together. Decide how you're going to build together, even if you're building in different directions. Be clear that we're building a house here on this rock, let me just say, right? We're building the house here. So when you're going to find cement and she's going to find the bricks, the point is we're all coming back to build here. How you go about it may be different, but the beauty of it is that if you're doing it separately sometimes, that when you don't successfully execute what you're doing, there's someone to hold you up on the other side.
Okay, which is quite interesting. Ladies, gentlemen, you can still work together while you're doing your job and build an empire. That's what I'm getting. So don't get too worried about it.
This is what I'm getting, my brother. What I'm getting is expectation. You want to build everything before you get into the marriage, and then now there's reality after you cross it. So, which brings me to something which I think could probably break you. Now that you have crossed over, you have become successful and everything, and now some dude wants you, and some lady wants your guy. And because you are up there, everyone is seeing you, and it's bound to happen. How do you best maneuver that?
In the marriage?
In your marriage now.
Yeah, obviously, people would want you.
I mean,
how do you do that?
Okay, I'll say it's cute that somebody still thinks I'm attractive, right? It's disrespectful that somebody who knows that I am married can see that I am married. I wear a sign that says I am married, has the audacity to come to me on that perspective. I look at it with disgust. I don't entertain it with any reverence. You know what I mean? Like I won't even let you down gently because you're disrespectful. You're disrespectful to my decisions as a person. So even whatever it is that you were seeing and that attracted you to me, if you could not see the first thing or the first sign that I am married and I'm committed to something else, and that did not click in your head that that's more important to me, then I should not even be having you in my space.
Yes.
I think I could speak the same way for my husband, but like, is it cute to hear someone say, sister, you know what I mean? Like, or you're looking nice, or somebody gives you a compliment. I don't think that there's a problem. It's in the pursuing. When you're now in the marriage, it's
a totally different.
It's totally a different ball game. Even when you are in a relationship that is in courtship, I don't know if I could say that you're already preparing for marriage. You are acting as if you are walking that journey towards the wedding day and consequently that marriage, right? Anyone who comes into that space with an agenda to disrupt or want to be in that space is disrespectful. That's the word that I'll use. Then if you as individuals in the courtship or in the marriage still look outside, then be honest with the other person that you're not ready for the idea or the realness of marriage in itself.
Which
know if that answers.
It did to a certain point. Where I wanted to get, how do you deal with slave queens around Kuda?
Slave queens?
Yes. How do you deal with girlfriends who are trying to get his attention? Or maybe perchance at one point he thinks that he wants to get one. Or if it were to happen.
I don't deal with it. I expect Kuda to deal with it. And I think it's something that we are very clear in our marriage, that I trust him enough to know what is important. I trust him enough to see that this is something that does not speak to the values and the purpose of our marriage.
Okay.
You know, he is quite a sociable person, but those that have interacted with him will clearly understand that he's not sociable down that path.
Okay.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. I also wanted to pick out something which was kind of interesting. We're talking about the nice, bubbly parts of it.
Yeah.
There's obviously the ugly side of it, the fights.
Yeah.
You know, even as couples, you know, the kind of thing. I believe in the marriage setup, it's also something big. And when I read, it was also saying that couples that are in business, sometimes the fights are the things that take them off. Yeah. How do you maneuver fights? Because definitely I know you'll clash one day or another on a business decision.
I mean, character-wise, we do clash, but then we are logisticians in a sense, right? Okay. So everything boils down to, does it make sense? Is it necessary? Is it truthful?
Okay.
And then, you know, we can level it out from that perspective. So in a boardroom, because sometimes there's the easy perspective that we run the business and it's just the two of us. We've got investors, we've got other board members. When we walk into the boardroom, I am not Norma the wife.
Okay.
I'm Norma, your business partner. I could definitely side with the other investor based on the logic of what we are discussing at that point. That does not speak to, one, I was not looking at fundamentally what does our family want to achieve. Number two, was I trying to disrespect you in that space because of how I speak, and my tone does not then suggest that I'm disrespectful. Okay. Right? I can still disagree without being nasty. Right? I can still proffer a different idea. Okay. The skill then is to listen. If my husband is proffering a different idea, we can have a back and forth. At some point, one of us or both of us have to concede that, okay, we're discussing the same thing in as far as this, right? So we're no longer going back to discussing that. We're now saying, what are our points of divergence and how do we bring ourselves to convergence for the purposes of moving on? Okay, which is quite interesting.
It's drawing me to, I think we're still circulating on the same issue, really. But it's drawing me onto the issue of being able to separate
state and church.
State and church. You know, I, for one, have been in particular situations also like that, where sometimes you end up seeing your bedroom issues coming into a business decision. And now I'm trying to make a decision. And I have heard a lot of men say, I am the head of the house. Yeah.
Okay. My husband is the head of our home. Okay. That's not a debatable question.
All right.
My husband can have a blinkered idea or concept around a business decision. As the head of the home, he must still have space to listen because the head carries ears. Yeah. And then decide to say, I hear you, I understand you. And to a point where we both agree, now we need to make a decision. Literally, when it's now we need to make a decision, one of us usually yields and says, we'll go with it your way. Okay. Because I'm not also afraid that whatever decision that my husband takes is for the good and for the fulfillment of our family purpose. Okay. Right? So if we do that, sometimes like, okay, I don't understand where you're going at, but I'm willing to give you a chance to be the one that makes this decision. When we get to that point, consequences that follow are both our consequences. They are not, it was your decision. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because we both agreed at some point that I yield my conviction for yours. Okay. Right? But being the head of the home speaks to your ability to listen. Okay. Listening to counsel, listening to other people's opinions, and then still making a decision. I don't think that's a questionable factor. It's always questionable when it's like, I'm the head of the home and therefore I've made a decision. It's like, okay, how's the rest of the body moving along with the head? You know what I mean? So there's always that connection of that. Because of what we are building, I'm happy to submit to the idea and the fact that you're the head of the home, but I need to be assured that I've been listened to, I've been heard. Okay. Sometimes in my being heard, I realize that what I'm trying to pursue is a non-factor. You know what I mean? Like I said, we are pretty much a couple that's bred on logic. So at some point I'll be like, okay. You know what I mean? I totally misfired that one. I get you. then you can go along with the statement, I'm the head of the home, therefore.
It's quite interesting.
Quite interesting. What I was like, my issue now, being a family that's built on, my issue now, being a family that does everything together, now successful together, and you guys are much into logic. They say you don't marry a person, you marry a village. How do you handle now her sisters, her family members coming into claim on the things that you have worked? And how do you handle the relatives coming around? Is it like we put 25% to my family, 25 to yours? How can we maneuver on that?
Okay. So maybe let me first be honest. I hit the jackpot in terms of my in-laws, right? They are a very progressive family which is part of the reasons why I married my husband. He comes from a family that sees people, a family that serves community, and a family that is built on certain values, right? And I don't at any point, because I also have to acknowledge that I accepted their surname. They honored me with giving me their name.
Okay.
There's never a time where I am building and I'm thinking, I'm not building for the Broda Musasiwa name.
Okay.
Right? There's never a time that when I am working, I'm thinking, no, this one has to go to the Nubes because it is my strength that is put in, right?
Yes.
In the same way that my family accepted the gift of Lobola in exchange of building the relationships, right? I trust that my husband also puts my family's interests at heart. And I think we've tasked ourselves to say, in as far as his family concerns go, they are my family concerns. In as far as my family concerns go, they are his concerns.
Okay.
And because of that space, we get to understand each other in terms of what are we building towards? And again, like I said, I hit the jackpot. If I look at my in-laws, everyone is building their own things. There's no one who's literally looking and saying, yeah, takatomirira kuti anakudana nanoma, they do well, right? My brother-in-law is way more successful than we are. My sister-in-law is like, she's a trailblazer, you know what I mean? Like, if we're to grade it, I think we are still like trailing number 3. Right? If we're to grade it. But not only that, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law have built a structure of the family that they were more focused on building generational wealth. Right? So there is no one who sits in the family and holds the name and thinks, oh my God, if one of us died, this is a tragedy. You know what I mean? There's a safeness in the family. So when we look at things like what are we working for, goes back to the purpose. And the purpose is that how do we impact the people that we encounter in our daily life? If it's my sister-in-law and she needs something from me, I don't even think twice because she's my sibling. You know what I mean? I joke about it that I'm the last born of the family. I'm significantly younger than my husband and consequently significantly younger than all of his siblings, right? But in that space, when I'm at home, I'm at home. I'm not at my in-laws. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
So yeah, I look at it in that way.
That's quite interesting.
We've just a few minutes left to finish this up, but I want to draw you back because we're talking to people in my generation. We're not yet married. We're still looking forward to marriage. I'm aspiring to also hit the jackpot, be a top business person, and etc. My sister there is also looking at it and saying, I want to sit on that seat, and I want to talk about my husband and say, I hit the jackpot too. I bet there are things that you did first before you walked into marriage, things that you looked at particularly before you said, this is the guy. What are the things that you would advise me as a young person getting into marriage? You'd say, Tanaka, please pay attention to these details.
Dismantle the idea that someone else's family is out to prosper on your strength. There's no one who, I don't believe that people live a life like that. We all have different struggles. What informed me when I was deciding that this is the man that I would marry was things that, number one, I wanted to see in my marriage based on the household that I grew up in. Right. So my household, I was born Adventist. So my household is very much a prayerful household. It's a family that is, more doctrine oriented and it's more structural, which is something that I saw in my husband's family. Right. My in-laws are actually bishops and pastors in the Baptist church, right? They're very conservative in their nature. So that's something that I could align with. I wasn't confused or dazed about walking into their family home. It's something that feels very natural to me. But not only that, it was what were the things that were happening in my home that I do not want to see.
Okay.
I grew up in a broken home. Essentially, my parents then divorced, right? And because of that, I didn't want to marry someone that came from a broken home.
Okay.
But believe it or not, my husband is a divorcee. He was married before, and then, and now having to maneuver that is a completely different ballgame. However, just generally based on the family, I was never worried about should my spouse not have an obligation to help their siblings out, right? But the conversations during the courtship time is, how far are you willing to take it? Or what is it that we will have to sacrifice from our own life that we're building now to serve helping your sibling? So they have to go to school. Do we delay having our own kids in the process so that we can at least usher one person into it? Because that's a financial implication and it's not a small one, right? Or do we have our own children and say, because we're a family of many, when it comes to Nkosnamandla going to school and us helping out, we commit to helping out to this specific figure, nothing more, nothing less, because we are not also divorced from the fact that our parents are still alive. Right? We're not divorced from the fact that my sibling needs to do what is necessary for him to also, find himself in a better position. So those were the things that I'd say, look out for. If you hear somebody, even just in generic conversation, talk about that, maybe that's not the kind of person that you want to be with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or is it something that you want to have a discussion? Are they a person that with new information, they can change their mind?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And when you develop that value system amongst yourself, how often do they derail from that value system during courtship? Because if they derail from the value system that you've set, that's definitely not a person that you want to build with, because forever is a long time. Right? And you don't want to keep going back to the fundamentals.
Okay. Okay. You hear, guys, what color do you like, and etc. Those things don't build the finances in the family. Right. Closing up the show. Last remarks, Justice, and then we close it up with our guest.
I'm not going to be the expert here.
Okay.
I'm going to be the one who asks the question to say, what's your advice for us once we cross that line? We've got our expectations, everything I'm expecting forever, that's blissful. But then the moment I cross, I don't know what you found. Based on what you found there, what could be your advice to me and the rest that will be watching?
All marriages don't look the same. And learn your skill of conflict resolution before you actually get married. And the wedding is not the marriage. And if you want to really spare yourselves the stress, the wedding doesn't even belong to either of you. It belongs to your family. So if you let them have that so that you can have a better marriage, you are well positioned for a better forever, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us as we went through this podcast. I hope you got a few good team nuggets. I actually got one thing that was quite important, which is teamwork. It's quite a fundamental. I'll thank my guest. It was an interesting show.
Very much.
And also thank my co-host, Justice, for being with us. Enjoy.
If it's conservative.
If you're looking for something liberal
and realistic, this is the place to be.